some people, not necessarily friends, but people who hadn't been on The Tonight Show. And some of the people have never. I don't believe Rudy was ever on The Tonight Show before.
I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, I'm short, I'm cute, and I'm all of that. I could come over here and I could...
What is going on with it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I could do that, you know, and I mean, there's no way...
I guess a controversial personality, and there are only probably a few people in our business professionally who can walk into a room or walk on a stage and people stop.
Johnny Carson revealed the 15 Golden Age guests who were actually evil. And the stories he told paint a disturbing picture of beloved icons who were monsters behind their carefully crafted public images.
You really hit him?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, how hard did you hit him?
Would you like to see?
No.
For 30 years, America's favorite host kept a mental blacklist of guests he considered truly terrible human beings.
19 years, John.
That's right.
Don't milk it anymore. Walk away.
These weren't just difficult personalities or demanding stars. According to Carson, these were genuinely dark people hiding behind fame and talent. So let's get into it. Joan Crawford arrived at The Tonight Show in 1970 with all the pomp and circumstance befitting Hollywood royalty. But what happened behind the cameras that day would earn her the top spot on Johnny Carson's private blacklist of truly evil celebrities.
Some people, not necessarily friends, but people who hadn't been on The Tonight Show. And some of the people have never. I don't believe Rudy was ever on The Tonight Show before. And this next lady, I have been a fan of for many, many years, like all of you have. And I don't know what kind of an introduction you give somebody.
The legendary actress who had captivated audiences for decades revealed herself to be something far more sinister than her glamorous public image suggested. Crawford's demands began arriving at the studio 3 days before her appearance. A 4-page memo details specific lighting requirements so precise that the show's technical director kept it in his files for decades as an example of celebrity excess. The studio temperature had to be exactly 67 degrees, not 66, not 68. Her chair needed to be positioned at a specific angle, Johnny's desk height adjusted, and her own makeup team brought in despite the show having award-winning artists on staff. When Crawford finally arrived 3 hours before taping, the transformation from gracious star to cruel dictator was immediate. She practically curtsied to Johnny, treating him with exaggerated deference, while simultaneously treating everyone else like servants beneath her notice. The contrast was so stark that veteran staff members were taken aback by the calculated nature of her behavior. The moment that sealed Crawford's reputation came when a 20-year-old production assistant accidentally entered her dressing room with the water she had requested. Crawford's response was so vicious that staff members in the hallway froze in shock. She launched into a tirade that included calling the young woman a brainless little something that can't be repeated and suggesting she find work at a brothel where incompetence might be an asset. The young assistant fled in tears while Crawford demanded she be fired immediately. Carson's producer refused, creating a tension that lasted throughout the entire taping. What disturbed witnesses most wasn't just the cruelty, but the pleasure Crawford seemed to take in humiliating someone who couldn't fight back. During the actual interview, Crawford became a completely different person the moment cameras rolled. Her smile was perfect, her answers rehearsed, every spontaneous moment carefully calculated. The transformation was so complete that it felt mechanical rather than human. Frank Sinatra's appearances on The Tonight Show were notorious among crew members for the atmosphere of intimidation that accompanied the legendary singer wherever he went. Carson maintained a professional relationship with Old Blue Eyes on camera, but privately harbored a deep dislike that stemmed from witnessing how Sinatra treated people when he thought no one important was watching.
I would like to say a few words about my next guest, my first guest tonight. And I'm going to do it now rather than when he's out here because I don't want to sound like a gushing schoolgirl. But in my opinion, he is probably the best singer of popular songs in the last 2 decades. He's been at it for 40 years. And those of us who were around when he first started can remember the the hysteria.
Sinatra would arrive with an entourage of up to 8 men who were described by staff as not show business types, but rather guys you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. These men would spread throughout the studio, watching crew members and creating what one cameraman described as feeling like being under surveillance by people who weren't there for entertainment purposes. The incident that most disturbed Carson occurred during an early 1970s appearance when a floor manager made the standard announcement that they had 3 minutes before going live. Sinatra's response was swift and terrifying. He grabbed the man by his tie, pulled him close, and made it clear that nobody tells Frank Sinatra when he has 3 minutes. The floor manager, a Korean War veteran in his 50s, was visibly shaken by the encounter. Carson witnessed this interaction from his office monitor and nearly canceled the segment entirely. Only his producer's reminder about the ratings Sinatra would bring convinced him to continue with the show. The tension between the two men was palpable for the rest of the evening, though both maintained their professional facades for the cameras.
Professional performance. He's a controversial personality, and there are only probably a few people in our business professionally who can walk into a room or walk on a stage and people...
Another source of constant frustration was Sinatra's reliability, or complete lack thereof. He canceled appearances at the last minute multiple times, including once when he was already in the building, but decided he wasn't in the mood to perform. The casual disregard for everyone else's time and effort revealed an ego that recognized no authority except its own. The breaking point came during a commercial break when Sinatra made a disparaging comment about a female staff member's appearance, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Carson's response was immediate and cold, telling Sinatra that they didn't talk about his staff that way. The singer was visibly surprised that anyone, even Johnny Carson, would challenge him so directly. Orson Welles possessed one of the greatest minds in entertainment history, but his appearances on The Tonight Show revealed an ego so enormous that he believed normal rules of television simply didn't apply to him. Carson's staff learned to dread booking the legendary director because his behavior consistently turned professional television production into chaos.
Have you met Mr. Welles before?
Mr. Wells, you make Wimpy look skimpy.
Well, you see, I'm fat and you're ugly, but I can diet.
The problems began before Welles even arrived at the studio. Tonight Show writers would spend hours preparing questions and topics for Carson to discuss with the cinema legend, only to have Welles dismiss their work as pedestrian and obvious. He would literally cross out every question and hand back empty pages, leaving Carson to interview one of the most significant figures in film history with no preparation or framework. During one appearance in the mid-1970s, Welles was scheduled for a 7-minute segment, but stayed on the couch for nearly 25 minutes, completely ignoring Carson's subtle cues that it was time to wrap up. The host had developed a series of signals to let guests know when time was running short, but Welles saw them all and simply kept talking, forcing producers to bump 2 other guests entirely. Welles treated Tonight Show staff with the same dismissive attitude he showed toward the show's format. He refused to speak directly to production assistants, instead addressing them in the third person even when they were standing right beside him. His commands of asking the girl to bring more water or telling the boy to adjust the lights revealed a man who saw others as props in his personal drama. What particularly infuriated Carson was Welles's habit of treating The Tonight Show as his own personal platform rather than respecting it as Carson's program. Bette Davis brought her legendary intensity to every Tonight Show appearance, but that same fire that made her a screen icon also made her one of Carson's most difficult guests. Her razor-sharp wit, which had captivated audiences for decades, became a weapon she wielded against anyone who crossed her path, including fellow guests and show staff.
That's why they
I
decorated
suppose
you.
by now you're wondering if you're going to get a chance. Wondering right now if you're going to get a chance to say anything. I will shut up in a minute.
Davis's treatment of other celebrities was particularly cruel when she appeared on episodes with multiple guests. She would interrupt younger performers, talk over women who were getting laughs, and physically turn her back on anyone she deemed unworthy of sharing her spotlight. Her jealousy was so obvious that audience members sometimes noticed the tension, though they couldn't understand its source. Behind the scenes, Davis's behavior was even more problematic. She demanded whiskey in her dressing room before every appearance, and her alcohol consumption often led to inappropriate comments that shocked even the jaded television veterans who worked on the show. Her language became increasingly offensive as the evening progressed, with racist and remarks that were appalling even by 1970s standards. One makeup artist recalled Davis refusing her services and asking for someone whose hands don't shake like they're coming off a 3-day bender. The cruelty was casual and constant, as if Davis couldn't resist cutting down anyone within range of her verbal weapons. The incident that finally prompted Carson to intervene occurred when Davis began berating a cue card holder during rehearsal, screaming at the young man for being too slow with his job. Carson stepped in quietly but firmly, telling Davis that on his show, everyone was spoken to with respect or not spoken to at all. She was reportedly stunned by being challenged but backed down immediately. What made Davis particularly frustrating for Carson was the contrast between her undeniable talent and her treatment of others. Unlike some difficult guests who could be dismissed as untalented, Davis was a genuine legend whose work Carson genuinely admired. The disconnect between her artistic achievements and her personal cruelty made her behavior even more disappointing. After her final appearance in the early 1980s, Carson told his producer that life was too short to spend it being verbally flogged by Bette Davis, no matter how many Oscars she had won. Mickey Rooney had been Hollywood royalty since childhood, the #1 box office star from 1939 to 1941, and a living connection to the industry's golden age. His appearances on The Tonight Show should have been nostalgic celebrations of an illustrious career, but instead became notorious among staff for his inappropriate behavior toward young women and his apparent inability to recognize professional boundaries. Female staff members quickly learned to request reassignment when they discovered Rooney was booked for an appearance. His reputation for unwanted touching, suggestive comments, and ignoring clear signals of discomfort made him someone to be avoided whenever possible. Young production assistants described how he would grab their hands when they brought him water, try to pull them closer, and ask personal questions about their marital status. One former assistant from the late 1970s recalled how Rooney would hold on to her wrist just a little too long when she tried to leave his presence, making it clear that the contact wasn't accidental. His behavior created an atmosphere of discomfort that affected the entire production whenever he appeared on the show. Equally concerning was Rooney's relationship with alcohol during his Tonight Show appearances. Staff members reported that he appeared visibly intoxicated during at least 3 separate appearances, slurring words and losing his train of thought mid-sentence. During one infamous 1977 segment, he began telling an inappropriate anecdote about Judy Garland that forced Carson to cut him off and quickly pivot to a different topic. Carson's frustration with Rooney was complicated by the generational gap in understanding what constituted appropriate behavior. Born in 1920, Rooney came from an era when certain conduct toward women was commonplace, if not openly condoned. When called out on his behavior, he seemed genuinely confused about why it was considered problematic. The breaking point came when Rooney made repeated inappropriate comments about a young actress who was also appearing on the show that evening. Carson took the unusual step of apologizing to her personally after the taping, telling her that wasn't how professionals acted on his show and promising it wouldn't happen again. True to his word, Rooney's appearances became much less frequent, with Carson insisting on daytime pre-tapings rather than live evening broadcasts when the aging star was booked. The Tonight Show was built on spontaneity and surprise, but some moments crossed lines that left everyone involved questioning what they had witnessed. Brooke Shields discovered this firsthand during one of her early appearances, when what should have been a harmless tribute to Johnny's comedy turned into a nightmare that nearly ended her career before it truly began. The plan seemed innocent enough. Shields' mother had convinced her teenage daughter to surprise Johnny by performing Carnack's famous pratfall entrance, the comedic stumble that had become one of Carson's signature bits. The idea was to honor the host while showcasing Brooks' willingness to embrace physical comedy, a gesture that would endear her to both Carson and his audience.
So my mom said, let's do that for Johnny and let's do it as a surprise. So they didn't tell any of the camera.
The decision to keep the stunt secret from the camera operators and even from Johnny himself created the first layer of what would become a cascading disaster. Without proper preparation, the technical crew had no way to capture what was supposed to be a planned comedic moment, setting up a situation where reality and performance would become dangerously blurred. Shields spent hours in her dressing room practicing the fall with pillows, perfecting the timing and execution that would make the surprise work. Her mother coached her through each movement, emphasizing how much Johnny would appreciate the gesture and how it would demonstrate Brooks' understanding of his comedic sensibilities. When the moment arrived, Shields executed the pratfall flawlessly, but the cameras weren't prepared to follow her movement. She disappeared completely from the frame, leaving viewers and studio audience members with no visual confirmation that what they had witnessed was intentional. The technical failure transformed a planned comedy bit into what appeared to be a genuine accident.
Out of it, of course, everybody thinks it's real.
Yeah.
And now they feel terrible for me. And there's this picture of Johnny reaching over the desk to try to help me, and his cuffs are all the way out of his jacket.
It's so
and
funny.
I'm on the ground going, they don't think this is a pratfall. They think this is real.
The confusion in the studio was immediate and overwhelming. Johnny's genuine concern, the audience's shocked silence, and the crew's frantic attempts to understand what had happened created an atmosphere of chaos that no one had anticipated. Shields found herself on the floor, realizing that her surprise had backfired in the worst possible way. Don Rickles had built his career on insult comedy, but his appearances on The Tonight Show sometimes pushed boundaries that made even seasoned television professionals uncomfortable. The fine line between roasting and cruelty became dangerously blurred during performances that revealed the darker potential of comedy when wielded without restraint. Rickles' approach to humor involved systematically dismantling his targets through personal attacks disguised as entertainment. On Carson's show, this meant turning his verbal weapons on Johnny himself, Ed McMahon, and even audience members who had no way to defend themselves against his calculated assault. The comedian's attacks weren't random or spontaneous, but carefully crafted to exploit perceived weaknesses and insecurities. He would research his targets beforehand, gathering ammunition that would allow him to strike where it would hurt most while maintaining the pretense that everything was just good-natured fun.
19 years, John.
That's right.
Don't milk it anymore. Walk away.
During another particularly brutal appearance, Rickles spent several minutes attacking Carson's personal life, his career longevity, and his relationships with devastating precision. The jokes weren't playful ribbing between friends, but surgical strikes designed to humiliate and diminish their target while the audience laughed along. The racial undertones in some of Rickles' material crossed lines that would be unthinkable in later decades, but in the 1970s context of The Tonight Show, they were presented as acceptable entertainment. The audience's laughter served as validation for comedy that was fundamentally rooted in prejudice and stereotype.
After 2 years, I never liked you. I don't give a... Where you go?
You got it made now? Who
That's
cares?
right.
The psychological impact on the targets of Rickles' attacks was often visible in real time. Carson's strained smiles, McMahon's uncomfortable laughter, and the nervous energy in the studio revealed that what was being presented as harmless fun was actually causing genuine distress to those involved. The carefully controlled environment of The Tonight Show occasionally erupted into genuine conflict when guests decided they had endured enough humiliation or disrespect. Wayne Newton's confrontation with Johnny Carson backstage represented one of the most explosive moments in the show's history. revealing how resentment could build over years of perceived slights and professional attacks. Newton had been the target of Carson's jokes for years, with the host regularly making comments about the singer's voice, his Las Vegas persona, and his general credibility as an entertainer. What Carson may have seen as harmless ribbing, Newton experienced as systematic professional sabotage that was damaging his reputation and career prospects. The breaking point came when Carson's jokes crossed from professional criticism into personal territory that Newton could no longer tolerate. The accumulation of years of on-air ridicule had created a resentment that finally demanded direct confrontation, regardless of the potential consequences for Newton's career.
You really hit him?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, how hard did you hit him?
Would you like to see?
No.
Newton's decision to drive to NBC and confront Carson in his office represented a complete breakdown of the normal protocols that govern celebrity interactions. The move was both desperate and dangerous, as it could have resulted in Newton being banned from not just The Tonight Show, but potentially other NBC programs as well. The confrontation itself was swift and shocking. Newton entered Carson's office while the host was meeting with his producer, demanded privacy, and then delivered his message in the most direct way possible. The physical altercation that followed shattered the illusion of civility that surrounded The Tonight Show's public persona.
And he turned pale, and I told him what my intentions were, and he wouldn't get up.
Carson's response to being struck revealed his own shock at having his authority challenged so directly. The host, accustomed to controlling every aspect of his show's environment, found himself powerless in the face of genuine anger from someone who had been pushed too far. Rodney Dangerfield's appearances on The Tonight Show often revealed the comedian at his most vulnerable, but they also exposed how Carson could exploit a guest's personal struggles for entertainment. The relationship between the two performers became increasingly uncomfortable as Dangerfield's self-deprecating humor crossed into territory that seemed genuinely self-destructive. Dangerfield's comedy was built on a foundation of genuine pain and insecurity, and his appearances on Carson's show often pushed those emotional wounds to their breaking point. What should have been supportive interactions between colleagues instead became exercises in psychological cruelty disguised as entertainment. Carson's treatment of Dangerfield revealed his inability to recognize when comedy had become something darker and more damaging. The host's responses to Dangerfield's increasingly desperate attempts at humor showed a callousness that was disturbing to witness.
Man, that's why. You kidding? I know I'm ugly. I stuck my head out the window, got arrested for mooning.
The audience's laughter at Dangerfield's self-deprecating jokes masked the genuine pain that drove his comedy. His willingness to humiliate himself for laughs created an atmosphere where cruelty was mistaken for entertainment and where personal suffering became a source of public amusement. The most troubling aspect of these appearances wasn't Dangerfield's willingness to expose his vulnerabilities, but Carson's apparent enjoyment of his guest's emotional pain. The host's reactions suggested someone who took pleasure in witnessing another person's psychological struggles.
You have lost a little weight, seriously, haven't you?
Yes, I have lost some weight. Usually that happens before you're going to pass away.
The long-term impact of these interactions extended beyond the immediate discomfort they caused, contributing to a culture where personal pain was commodified for entertainment and where genuine human suffering was treated as material for comedy rather than occasions for compassion. Sally Field's appearance on The Tonight Show devolved into a physical altercation involving shaving cream that revealed how quickly Carson's interactions with female guests could spiral out of control. What began as playful banter about her relationship with Burt Reynolds quickly escalated into a situation where professional boundaries were completely abandoned. Field had come prepared with advice from Reynolds about how to handle Carson, including suggestions about being aggressive and engaging in physical comedy. However, the advice proved to be either misguided or deliberately designed to create chaos, as the evening quickly became more about Carson's desire to engage in inappropriate physical contact than about promoting Field's work. The conversation took an uncomfortable turn when Field openly discussed her relationship with Reynolds. Her candid admissions seemed to unleash something predatory in Carson's behavior, as he immediately began pushing for more intimate details in physical interaction.
Your relationship with Bert,
Lovers.
Oh, lovers.
The situation escalated when Field, following Reynolds' advice to be physically aggressive with Carson, began a shaving cream fight that caught the host completely off guard. Rather than Carson being the instigator of inappropriate physical contact, it was Field who crossed professional boundaries by covering him with shaving cream during the live broadcast.
I mean, I'm short, I'm cute, and I'm all of that. I could come over here and I could...
What is going on with it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I could do that, you know, and I mean, there's no way...
The shaving cream assault was presented as spontaneous fun, but it represented a complete breakdown of the professional decorum that typically governed television interviews. Field's willingness to physically attack her host, even in a playful context, demonstrated how Reynolds' advice had encouraged behavior that was inappropriate for a television appearance. Carson's shock at being covered in shaving cream was evident as he tried to manage the situation while maintaining his composure. The host found himself in the unusual position of being the victim rather than the perpetrator of inappropriate physical contact during an interview. The studio audience's enthusiastic response to Field's physical assault masked the underlying inappropriateness of what was occurring. The live television format meant that there was no way to stop the situation once it began, leaving Carson to navigate an increasingly chaotic encounter while trying to regain control of his show. Field's assault on Carson demonstrated that the show's culture of inappropriate conduct had infected everyone involved, creating situations where normal professional standards no longer applied. Tommy Smothers' on-air walkout during a 1978 appearance represented one of the most visible breakdowns of The Tonight Show's carefully maintained facade. What began as a routine comedy bit between the Smothers brothers quickly devolved into genuine frustration and embarrassment that spilled over into the television performance itself, revealing the awkward dynamics that could emerge when guests struggled to connect with Carson's comedic sensibilities. The incident started with what should have been a simple comedy routine about a classic vaudeville bit called What Kind of Dog Is It? However, the execution of the routine became increasingly confused and uncomfortable as Tommy struggled to explain the setup, while his brother Dick Smothers grew visibly frustrated with the material's failure to land with either Carson or the audience. Dick Smothers, Tommy's younger brother and longtime comedy partner in the famous Smothers Brothers duo, had built his career on playing the straight man to Tommy's more scattered persona. Their act traditionally featured Tommy as the bumbling older brother, while Dick provided the logical counterpoint. But this dynamic became painfully real during their Carson appearance.
That's not funny, John. That's an old joke. It's historically interesting, but it's not funny.
Yeah, but see, we could, let's just do it.
Well, you already gave the punchline. Even if we did do it, you can't do it now. They heard the joke, you can't tell the punchline.
Dick's blunt assessment of the routine's failure was delivered with the kind of brutal honesty that only comes from decades of working with a family member. His dismissal of Tommy's attempt to present the classic comedy bit revealed the professional tensions that existed between the brothers behind their public persona as a harmonious comedy team. The situation deteriorated further as Tommy's attempts to salvage the routine only made things worse. His confusion about the setup and his inability to deliver the punchline effectively created an increasingly awkward situation that Carson seemed powerless to rescue, while Dick's exasperation became more visible with each failed attempt. Carson's own discomfort with the failing routine was evident as he tried to help salvage the situation while maintaining his professional composure. The host found himself caught between two brothers whose professional relationship was clearly strained, creating an atmosphere of genuine tension that was impossible to disguise. Tommy's ultimate decision to abandon the routine entirely demonstrated the level of embarrassment and frustration that had built up during the failed comedy attempt. His walkout wasn't a protest against Carson's treatment, but rather an acknowledgement that the situation had become too uncomfortable to continue, revealing how even seasoned performers like the Smothers Brothers could experience professional breakdowns on live television when family dynamics intersected with career pressures. Joan Rivers' departure from The Tonight Show to host her own late-night program led to a public fallout with Carson that would last for the rest of his life, revealing the vindictive and controlling aspects of his personality that he usually kept hidden from public view. The conflict exposed how Carson viewed loyalty and betrayal in deeply personal terms that had nothing to do with professional relationships or business decisions. Rivers had been one of Carson's most frequent guest hosts and was widely considered his chosen successor for The Tonight Show.
No. Drugs replace sex. I'm using my coil now as a roach clip. I mean, it's...
Her decision to accept Fox's offer to host her own competing program was seen by Carson as the ultimate betrayal, despite the fact that such career moves were completely normal in the entertainment industry. Carson's reaction to Rivers' departure was swift and brutal. He immediately banned her from appearing on The Tonight Show and reportedly never spoke to her again, maintaining his grudge for decades until his retirement. The vindictive response revealed a side of Carson's personality that few guests had experienced directly. The personal nature of Carson's reaction demonstrated his inability to separate professional relationships from personal loyalty. Rivers' crime wasn't poor performance or unprofessional behavior, but rather the audacity to pursue her own career interests without Carson's permission or approval. The incident revealed the controlling environment that Carson had created around The Tonight Show, where loyalty to him personally was more important than professional competence or audience appeal. Guests and staff members learned that challenging Carson's authority or competing with his interests could result in permanent banishment. Rivers' treatment became a cautionary tale for other performers who might consider similar career moves. The message was clear. Carson's approval was necessary for continued success in late-night television, and crossing him could result in career-ending consequences. The long-term impact of this conflict extended far beyond the immediate participants, establishing patterns of control and retribution that influenced how late-night television operated for decades. Carson's vindictive response to Rivers' departure demonstrated that personal loyalty was more important to him than professional relationships or business considerations. The most disturbing aspect of this incident wasn't the initial conflict, but Carson's refusal to reconcile or move past his anger, maintaining his grudge until the end of his career, and demonstrating a level of vindictiveness that was shocking even by entertainment industry standards. Jane Fonda's appearance on The Tonight Show took an unexpected turn when the actress decided to share a sexually explicit story that had been circulating about Carson himself, creating one of the most uncomfortable moments in the show's history. Rather than being the victim of Carson's inappropriate behavior, Fonda became the instigator of a deeply awkward exchange that caught the host completely off guard. The incident began innocuously enough, with Fonda engaging in typical celebrity banter with Carson. However, the conversation took a shocking turn when she decided to confront him about a legendary story involving Zsa Zsa Gabor that had become part of Hollywood folklore, demonstrating how Carson's reputation for crude humor had become so well established that guests felt comfortable bringing up explicit sexual content. Fonda's decision to share the infamous cat story on live television revealed how stories about Carson's inappropriate behavior had become common knowledge within the entertainment community. Her willingness to repeat the sexually suggestive anecdote suggested that such content was considered acceptable discussion material for The Tonight Show.
And she said to you, "Do you want to pet my pussy?" And my son said that you said, "I'd love to if you'd remove that damn cat."
The explicitness of Fonda's retelling was shocking even by The Tonight Show's standards. Her casual delivery of the innuendo demonstrated how normalized such content had become in the show's environment, while also revealing her own comfort with sharing inappropriate material on live television. Carson's obvious discomfort with having this particular story brought up on his own show was evident in his stammered response in attempts to deflect the conversation. For once, he found himself on the receiving end of inappropriate sexual content rather than being the one initiating such exchanges. The audience's enthusiastic response to Fonda's story validated her decision to share explicit content, demonstrating how the show's culture had created an environment where stories were not only tolerated but actively encouraged and celebrated. Artie Johnson's work on Laugh-In had made him one of television's most recognizable character actors, known for his versatility and comic timing. His appearances on The Tonight Show should have been celebrations of his success, but instead became notorious among staff for his perfectionist meltdowns and verbal abuse of crew members who failed to meet his impossible standards. Johnson's backstage behavior was characterized by explosive anger over minor technical issues that he believed affected his performance. He would scream at lighting technicians for shadows he claimed were unflattering, berate sound engineers for feedback only he could hear, and demand multiple retakes of segments that seemed fine to everyone else. During one 1973 appearance, Johnson's tantrum over his microphone placement lasted so long that the entire show's schedule had to be rearranged. He insisted that the audio equipment was sabotaging his performance and accused the technical crew of deliberately trying to make him look bad. What made Johnson's behavior particularly difficult to handle was his conviction that his demands were reasonable and that anyone who disagreed simply didn't understand professional standards. He seemed genuinely unable to recognize that his perfectionism had crossed into abusive behavior. Carson initially tried to accommodate Johnson's demands, respecting his experience and assuming that his concerns were legitimate. However, as the comedian's meltdowns became more frequent and severe, the host began to question whether the entertainment value was worth the disruption to his show. The breaking point came when Johnson verbally attacked a young camera operator who had been with the show for years and was known for his professionalism. Carson intervened directly, telling Johnson that his behavior was unacceptable and that future appearances would depend on his ability to work collaboratively with the crew. Johnson's response was to storm off the set mid-taping, leaving Carson to explain his absence to the audience and fill the remaining time with improvised content. The incident marked the end of his regular appearances on The Tonight Show. Rip Taylor's flamboyant personality and signature confetti-throwing act made him a colorful Tonight Show regular throughout the 1970s, but his appearances became increasingly chaotic as his cocaine use spiraled out of control. What staff initially dismissed as eccentric behavior gradually revealed itself as drug-fueled mania that created dangerous and unpredictable situations during tapings. Taylor's backstage behavior became erratic and aggressive as his substance abuse problems intensified. He would arrive at the studio wired and paranoid, making accusations against crew members and creating an atmosphere of tension that affected everyone around him. His famous energy, which had once been charming, became manic and frightening. During one 1976 appearance, Taylor's condition was so obvious that Carson considered canceling his segment entirely. The performer was sweating profusely, talking rapidly about conspiracy theories, and unable to sit still long enough for makeup artists to prepare him for television. The situation escalated when Taylor accused a lighting technician of deliberately trying to make him look bad by adjusting the studio lights. His paranoid rant lasted nearly 10 minutes and included threats of violence that security took seriously enough to increase their presence in the studio. Carson's attempts to manage Taylor during interviews became increasingly difficult as the performer's responses grew more disconnected from the questions being asked. What should have been light entertainment became uncomfortable television as viewers witnessed someone clearly struggling with serious personal problems. The final straw came when Taylor's drug-induced paranoia led him to physically confront a cameraman he believed was focusing too much attention on his sweating and nervous tics. The incident required security intervention and convinced Carson that Taylor's appearances had become too dangerous to continue. Taylor's last Tonight Show appearance came in early 1977, though the reason for his sudden absence was never officially acknowledged. Carson's decision to end their professional relationship reflected his growing concern about enabling destructive behavior for the sake of entertainment. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.